So I'm thinking about sex and pregnancy. I'm thinking now society is geared, very much structured to protect and nurture women. That seems to be the main focus in society. And this is the case because women produce children and it's beyond essential. And so the welfare of women and their entertainment and their nurturing is the most important thing for society to do. So society is geared towards the protection of women and the provision of comfort and care for women. Men, in contrast, are just providers of DNA and the workhorses of society. They do all the things around women. So I'm thinking about that, and I'm also thinking about the connection between sex and pregnancy. Now, nature has obviously made sex attractive and appealing to men and women. So, sex happens and then children happen as a result sometimes. So, nature has made sex so attractive, so important to men, that men want to pursue sex a great deal. Men don't want to pursue babies necessarily. That's not the reason why men seek sex so much. It's the pleasure of sex that men seek. But babies can result from the pleasure of sex. And that's what nature wants. And so nature makes sex so appealing so that babies will happen. From a man's point of view, very often he won't want to have children when he has sex. He just wants the sex. The woman decides if he will become a father. The man can either only ask or not even intend to have children, but the woman decides if children will happen. I'm wondering something now. I'm wondering if there was no connection between sex and pregnancy. So, if sex was just an activity in itself and it didn't lead to pregnancy and then children, if sex was just an activity by itself, how would life be if sex had nothing to do with children? And to have children, you had to go through some process that was like filling in a tax return or something. If it was onerous to produce a child, a hassle, how would that affect the birth rates? In other words, I'm asking how many children born with the father's consent and an intended child, and how many children were not intended but were accepted by the man and wanted by the woman, and so it proceeded. So I am very interested to wonder and know how many children were born intentionally, how many people were intended to be alive. I haven't thought much about the answer to that question yet, but I'm thinking on it now. But it does interest me to know what people think on if pregnancy was not linked to sex at all. If pregnancy was some different choice that the woman could make that was separate from sex. So as I say, men want the sex. They don't necessarily want the children, but the children can result from the sex. And I suppose that's what society needs to function. So the question is, how would society function if pregnancy could only result from a man's decision. They wanted to create a pregnancy. Because at the moment, there is no choice. I mean, you can use condoms or whatever, and they work to an extent. But, and women can take the pill as well. So she has that option. But basically, the main thing I want to know is if sex did not lead to pregnancy, how would society be? If sex had nothing to do with pregnancy, how much sex would go on, and how would society function if men could choose when they wanted to be fathers? I think it's an interesting question.